Hello everyone, it's me Carol from Practical Mystic. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be great concluding the series of the Pythagorean Triangle. Today we're going to talk about the last of the empty planes. It's called the plane of compassion, and it has to do with numbers 3, 5, and 7 in your date of birth. I'm happy to present this to you. My location has been experiencing a lot of internet connection and disconnect because they are revamping the system. So I wanted to get this out. It looks like they're done working right now for today, but it's been a whole week of internet access and no access. So I also want to say that of the empty planes, this one too is a little complex. I'll be sharing with you information about karma, since I and other numerologists really believe that this particular empty plane has a lot to do with one's karma. Okay, so what does it look like if you have this? This is the empty plane of compassion. Now the example that I gave was for the date of birth, April 18th, 1962. When we put the numbers of the individual's date of birth in the Pythagorean Triangle, we have two ones, we have a 2, we have a 4, we have a 6, we have an 8 and a 9, but we do not have a 3, 5, or 7. Voila, we have an empty line of compassion. What does that mean? Well, we're going to discuss that here today. And again, I get into great detail and hopefully I explain it well. Please text me, let me know if you have any additional questions. Now, the empty plane of compassion is also about insight. I like to say self-awareness. Man, know thyself is very important for anyone who is missing this empty plane. So let's begin, because there's another very important aspect of the missing number lines that can be found in the Pythagorean Triangle. These 3 missing numbers are said to be connected and or apply to someone close to them. And I'm going to break that down and go into that a little bit deeper on page 2. So let's look at the possibilities. First, I want to talk about the first, like the empty plane of will. Now, we discussed that in the last video. Let me give you a visual here. This is the last video, the empty plane of will, which was numbers 6, 5, and 4. Okay? Like the empty plane of will, I went 4, 5, and 6, okay? The 3 distinct areas of the chart, namely mind, emotion, and physical, are affected. What do I mean by that? And I will also link the first video on the Pythagorean Triangle for those of us who are just tuning in. The Pythagorean Triangle, when they are interwoven, there's 3 planes of expression that really talk about the individual's mind, emotions, and physical. So we can say the head, the heart, and the feet are down here if you put man on the in the triangle. So what is happening with the empty line of will and the empty line of compassion is it's affecting the 3 lines. You're not going to join the 3 lines because of these missing numbers. So let's discuss those 3 lines. Recapping, the top part of the chart is known as the mind line. I just showed it to you, 3, 6, and 9. And that expresses through mentality, the intellect, rationalization, imagination. These are expressed and used outwardly to be seen and heard. Okay, so that is an important thing to remember. We now have the 3, the beginning part of that line. Now, the middle part of the chart is known as the emotion, also the soul. That's line 2, 5, and 8. It's important to remember that this line represents both the individual and universality of our innermost being. It's expressed inwardly and outwardly, where, of course, the mind line was outwardly. And I personally find connected aspects of this line to one's unconscious and psyche. The bottom part of the chart is known as the physical, 1, 4, and 7, and that shows the physical adequacy and willingness of the body to follow through the desires and impetus of the number combinations above, 3 and 5. It is connected to one's health and stamina. Also, number 4, down here, in this line is super important. Now, we know that in the line of compassion, this person had it, but let's say it's missing. It's always about, when you don't have that line, what we communicate. That's Mercury. And when you do communicate that, how it signals to our bodies, because that number 4 with the planet Mercury is also the higher octave, which is Uranus. And Uranus is the adrenal glands and the sympathetic nervous system. So what I want you to get out of that is how we think, how it affects our physical self. Because Uranus is the fight or flight reaction because of its connection to the sympathetic nervous system. And so is the moon. And I'll show you where that moon is here in a few minutes. So the importance of having a good, solid, adequate stamina, physical body that knows how to disconnect and not let thought patterns or feelings, what is above the 2 lines, make it reactive, where it does something and thinks later. Okay, let's continue now. The connection to someone else, in my experience, is most often a family member based on heritage and ancestry. Let's back up a little bit. This is what I was alluding to as far as the missing line that could apply to someone close to them. It's usually connected to a very close family member, spouse, child, and again, we'll discuss the ancestry a little bit deeper. Now, some numerologists have referred to this area of the Pythagorean Triangle not as the, of course, the plane of compassion, but also the plane of Saturn. Now, how interesting. I certainly concur, as well as the mysterious and mystical number 7 is missing, and it sits at and is a cornerstone, meaning it is a crucial point in connecting 3 other lines in the triangle. So if you don't have that 7, what am I referencing here? That it is a crucial point in connecting. So here's 7. Now, most of us have the cornerstone 1 and 9. We're born in the 19th century. So missing this 7, you cannot have the connection of this line here, or the line that we're speaking of today, compassion, or the will line 9, 8, and 7. Without it missing, there's not going to be this full line, that full line, and this full line. So that's considered an important aspect of the Pythagorean triangle, and numerologists talk about it as being connected to Saturn. Okay, now Pythagoras said that the 7th day of the week corresponds to the planet Saturn, Saturn day. And that's what we use here, and that is the astrological corresponding that we give it. So you can see that the plane of Saturn for some numerologists comes into play. It's going to be a little bit deeper. Hold on, I'm going to give you some more information. Now, numerologists, of course, have other corresponding planets to numbers, and they consider and use the planet Neptune and Moon. Remember, I said the Moon is going to be connected to the unconscious as a corresponding energy vibration to interpret this number. So in your astrological chart, I always like to make note of where Neptune is, where your Moon is, how it's aspected, and what house it is in, to understand the fuller repercussions of possibly a number 7 missing in your date of birth. And I have a missing 7 missing in my date of birth. So I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, 7 is considered a physical number, and both it has scientific and or spiritual mindedness about it. You're either very scientific or you are very spiritual, how you use that number 7. Now, Saturn relates to karma. It can be individually and family related. Physical manifestations are seen with the eyes, ears, and migraine headaches. Why is that? Well, remember, they're connected to the adrenals. They're also connected to the sympathetic nervous system. And Saturn has nervous disorders that can be described as anxiety and sometimes lethargy. You just don't feel like doing anything. Your body hurts. There's pain and mental and physical, sometimes suffering. Now, that isn't to say that everybody who has this missing line has this personally. Again, it could be someone close to them. Does it mean that you can't get rid of it? Absolutely not. These are things that you are given to work towards understanding, rectifying, and also teaching through your actions and reactions those around you as they witness these manifestations, illnesses, frustrations happening around you. Okay, note, this is so important. The complete chart, the family upbringing, education, and personal self-awareness must be included in any interpretation of this aspect. I would like to add that whatever line in the triangle, in the whole Pythagorean triangle, is missing, there is a silver lining for the individual. First, I believe that there are no mistakes. We are born into a family at a certain time and place for reasons that are complex, yet the sole purpose of ours and those closest to us have evolutionary meaning. What we achieve and overcome have benefits that affect this and other lifetimes. All right, those with this missing life may experience many starts and stops. Don't get discouraged. You're going to also get frustrated and you're going to be disappointed. They tend to occur around the time, most interestingly enough, of our first astrological Saturn return. Astrologers will talk to you about that. And a Saturn return happens to all of us around the age of 27 to 31. Now, at that point, some decide during these time periods to make major life changes. Some of them could be divorce. They could also be marriages. Sometimes there's loss of a loved one or job loss or changes. of jobs. There could be health crisis for you or someone else. Areas that many focus on centered are around family, having or not having children, or furthering education. These are all possibilities that you're confronted with. Many with this missing number line soon learn how important it is for them to step back and evaluate their beliefs, which reflect greatly their actions and the consequences thereof. Like, let's talk about a missing number 3. Could produce an attitude of rebellion. It's related to the planet Mars. A missing number 5 could have the notion that life isn't fair and lady luck passed them by. It's related to the planet Jupiter. Now, along with the missing 7, we already talked about it having to do with Saturn, one's self-confidence can be weak, and a what's the use mentality gets the better of them. When the bearer of these possible tendencies finally takes them to a place where the pain and anguish have defeated them, is where and when they are faced with the reality to choose differently on all 3 levels. So we have the mental, the emotional, and the physical level all get aspected at that point. They all have to work in unison. Numerologists believe that the individual is here to learn patience, to learn and practice and rely on the spiritual side of their nature. They have to believe, which is the mind line. They have to feel, accept the feeling, accept the emotions, feel it to heal it, which is the compassion line, and they have to experience it. They have to walk the talk. The life lesson number certainly comes into play here, so please take note. If it is one of the missing numbers, if you have a life lesson number of 3, 5, and 7, there is a greater force at work to overcome this. Now, here is another nuance. Master numbers 11, 22, and 33 tend to learn the lessons before the first Saturn return. But many have childhood diseases, illnesses, complications, and in this way, they seem to develop inner strength, resilience, and a connection to spirit. And they have little self-pity with huge loving hearts. And they are teachers too. The physicians who take care of them, the parents who gave birth to them, and everyone around them. All right, let's go ahead and finalize this whole line of missing energy with some information about karma, okay? Karma is a law, not a possibility, and it's that each of us must address in order to reach our fullest and highest soul potential. It's a given. Now, because I wanted to relate it to the aspect and information that I gave you about the empty plane of compassion and soul, there's unconscious memory of and attachment to unfinished relationships, especially family and children. There's unfulfilled desires and other incomplete cycles of life occurring this lifetime. Now, there are 3 sources or types of karma that all of us need to know and maybe have a little bit more insight on. Of course, we have personal karma. That's what you generate right now by identifying and, most importantly, owning the conditions and situations you currently find yourself in. Then there is family, and it's only by identifying the blessings and sins of your ancestry can you begin to make the necessary changes. And past life karma. It's when you realize that your life is encumbered, also very much connected to everyone around you, but it is encumbered by the and it leads you, I apologize for that, leads you to heal wounds, mend fences, seek and give forgiveness, and find the greater purpose and meaning in the reality that you live by and those closest to you. It's when you don't want to do this anymore. It's when you're ready to say, it isn't worth it. What goes around comes around, and I want to understand that there is no judgment, but there's an opportunity for me to work through my past karma. So as you work to understand the mysterious, there is a refinement which is initiated towards who you are. Remember the personal insight, self-awareness, working on yourself, self-development. And when you do that, you find out that all is connected to the one. Lastly, truth and authenticity become powerful intentions in your life. What is truth, and how can I be authentic to myself and others? All right, everyone, that's concluding this series on the Pythagorean Triangle. As always, thank you for supporting, watching, and listening. Please know that I am open to any questions that you have if I can clarify anything. Again, thanks, everyone. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Bye for now.